So this week's topic is activity versus inner communion. And this title is actually a little bit misleading because it says versus, as if these two are contradicting or as if we need to choose one or the other. But as the reading said, it's not about that. And it is more about activity and inner communion, or activity with inner communion. Master also says, when you work for God but not for yourself, that is just as good as meditation. Then your work helps your meditation, and your meditation helps your work. We need the balance. He also even says that if you have one but not the other, it is spiritually dangerous. Yesterday or Saturdays, Gaurav has started a series based on Swamiji's book and video on conversations with Yogananda. And we've been having very nice discussions and sharing. And yesterday, actually, one of our friends shared that as she came on the path, her lifestyle or her choices, priority have changed. And sometimes she feels she's a misfit in this society, which probably many of us have felt one way or the other as we came on this path. But all of us here are still on the path. Why? Primarily because we have meditation. We have that time of inner communion with God, very personal, but in that meditation, in that stillness, as Master says also, where motion ceases, God begins. In meditation, we experience tangibly, personally, but tangibly, that God is here with me. He's present, and you feel His love, His protection. There's no doubt about it. And that gives us strength. That gives us this firm ground on which we can stand, even if we get pulled or pushed in the world. Brother Lawrence, you might have heard of his name. He's known for practicing the presence of God. He's a Christian monk from 17th century in Europe. He says, spending time in the chapel for formal prayer, or doing his kitchen duty in the monastery, or even picking up a straw from the ground, it's all the same. God is with him as much, in all times. And that's how we want to be. And I'm sure every one of us have been trying, different ways. Some worked, some didn't work. And I would love to hear, but since the time is limited, I'll just share my own experiment and some thoughts. The meditation techniques that we've learned here, Honso, Om technique, Kriya, they help us to get to superconscious state. But Swamiji also says that these techniques help us to bring that superconscious state down to our daily life. Martha can't just ignore, steaming pots in the kitchen and ignore hungry guests and just come and sit at the feet of Jesus. Same for us. We have activities to do. We have duties to fulfill. We cannot just abandon all of a sudden and, sit for meditation. So Swamiji suggests, instead of feeling agitated or tensed about it, just go into it, face with it, completely, fully, but by sharing with God. He used Honso as an example. I'm sure everyone here knows Honso. During the day, when you have problem, challenge, or even physical pain, when you inhale and mentally chant Hon, focus on the problem or the pain. As you exhale, release it, relax it, offer it to God, share it with God. And that way, disclaimer, it doesn't solve your problem. Your problem doesn't miraculously disappear, if with this few minutes of Honso. But what you get is a different consciousness within you. Your focus shifts from problem to God. With every breath you're thinking about God, you're offering yourself to God. What else can we do? And as a result, you get courage, you get strength to deal with the problem you have. You know that God is with you to go through that problem. Another tip that Swamiji gives in our meditation practice, especially Kriya, is, he suggests feel that Master is practicing meditation in you, and you practicing in him. How about taking that into our daily life too? He's within us, or we are also in him. In purification ceremony, we come to an acharya and say, I seek purification by the grace of God. And acharya, on behalf of Master says, I will enter and take charge of your life. That's what he does. That's what he's already doing with us. There's a story of Master, one day he just, suddenly tells a woman disciple who was right in front of him that you have a sour taste in your mouth right now. It's like, the disciple is like, how do you know? And he says, I am as much, in your body as you are in your body, or I am in my body. Swamiji also recalls that how Master knew his innermost thoughts that he has never shared with anyone. So he is already in us. And then, as we act, as we go through our day, think that what if Master is seeing this world through his eyes, or through our eyes, and what if this is his consciousness that is interacting with the world or anyone you meet? How would he act? What would he say? Will he be judgmental? Will he be critical? No. Naturally, if we think about it, our behavior, our state of consciousness changes. Earlier this year, this week, actually, I did deep cleaning at my house. I wanted to do with God and for God. Let's clean it up. So I played this God, God, God that we just listened, and then started cleaning. 4 hours went by in this heat. Okay, I was cleaning every corner of the kitchen and bathroom. I was not hungry, I was not tired, Rather, I was uplifted, I was energized. What activity we do doesn't matter, as the reading also said. As long as we are thinking about God, whatever we do, then His power, His energy flows through us, gives the power to go through whatever we need to do. Last year, I had to spend a few days in the hospital. I was pretty much all day, all night, I was lying on the bed. I was feeling a little sad, not because of whatever ailments I had, but just that I'm not able to serve. My day is always in the ashram, and that was such a difference. Then I realized that there should be something I can do still. And I started praying for other patients, family, nurses and doctors. And I could feel Master's energy going through. Wherever we are, whatever limitations we have, we as His disciples can share His light in whatever way. As long as we keep our mind, our heart filled and fixed on Him. God, God, God. That's only thing we need.
Okay. There is a phrase or a line from this reading this week that I wanted to start off with. It reminded me of a funny story that I want to share. And Swami says here, good deeds outwardly, without inner communion with God, will result in good karma, but will not bring final freedom from all karma. Now, very interesting that, we talk of good karma, we all want good karma, but he's saying even good karma will only take you to a point. And reminded me of a story. I think it's a true story. Swamiji, I think, related it at one point. And there was this very wealthy man, I think Seth, people would call him, very wealthy, extremely wealthy. And he was nearing the end of his life. I think he had turned 80. And, one day he went to a very renowned astrologer and he said, Panditji, I want to know if you can tell me, is it possible for you to tell me who I will be in my next life? And the Pandit was very startled. Often people don't ask such questions. They say, tell me about my past life, what I'm going to have in my present life. So he was startled. He said, I'll come back to you. Give me some time. It's a hard question, hard request. I'll come back to you. So, this Sethji goes away, comes back a few days later. And the Panditji says, I have arrived. You are very fortunate. I have found who you are going to be just a few years from now when you die and when you reincarnate. So Sethji was just, very happy. So he tell me, who am I going to be in my next life? So Panditji tells him, so-and-so village, 500 kilometers from here, you're going to be born into this family, your name is going to be so-and-so, and this is going to be your father's name. And so he tells him all these details. And Sethji, he just wanted to be extra sure. So he says, are you positive this is who I'm going to be? And Panditji, absolutely, there is no doubt. I have checked everything, all the stars, your past, and this is the one person you're going to be. He asks again, he said, absolutely, very confident. So Panditji or Sethji starts to, walk back. He's very happy. And then Panditji asks him, but Sethji, just tell me one thing, why were you asking? Why are you so curious to know who you're going to be in your next life? And Sethji tells him, Panditji, you know my life. I've had such a good life, such good karma, to attract all this wealth that God has given me. He said, what a shame if I were to just, waste all of it. And he said, now that you have told me who I'm going to be in a few years from now, I'm going to make my will, and in my will I'm going to name this person as being the beneficiary of all my inheritance and my wealth and my property. So very, I think very smart on Sethji's part to have that kind of foresight. Karma really it's infallible. So I think on one level, if this man had not even put out so much energy to find out who he would be, if you have earned, let's say, something in life with your right in energy, intention, even if it's prosperity, then the law of karma will ensure that, in your next life, you're going to attract those similar things. You've earned it. So just to say, he took the extra, he wanted to make absolutely sure there was no loopholes. So he went that extra bit, but he needn't have. But I'm just sharing this story to illustrate a point. And the point is that, good karma also, and now I'm especially talking about all of us as devotees. Good karma, when we start on the spiritual path, we take up a practice, we find our guru, we take up meditation. Very often in the beginning, our thought, our question is, what is this path going to bring me? Isn't it? Think about your very first days, what am I going to get out of this? Maybe it's peace of mind, maybe it's calmness, or we get a guru and we think, now the guru is going to change my life, bless my life, bring all these nice things into my life, and which is all fine, when we begin on our journey, because that's how we all begin. But really, as we mature as devotees, as we become wise, which all of us do, will if we haven't reached that point, a time comes when all of those things, which are really, the desire to have good things, to have good karma in our life, after a while, really, a point comes you become tired of it. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like no longer, do those things, those good circumstances happening, good people coming into your life, prosperity surrounding you, good friends, success, whatever it might be. After a while, even the devotee becomes a little tired of it. It's not like you don't want it or you are ungrateful that God has given you those things. But I think a part of us, if we are really wise, says, yes, you have given me all these things, it's maybe good karma, but you really ask God, but where are you? When are you going to come? It's nice that you've given me all these things, but, where's the real deal, as they say? Where are you? And, it's like the little baby, when a little child starts crying, starts wailing, starts weeping. Mother comes, gives him something, toy, that keep quiet, don't bother me. So the child becomes happy in his toy, and then the mother goes away. Little time passes, child becomes bored, she says, he starts crying again. She says, here's your favorite food, eat it, and just don't bother me again. Again, he finishes the meal. For a little while, he's happy. Then again, he cries out. And again, she gives him something. And really, it's the child who doesn't stop crying. He sees through this farce that the mother is giving him everything but her time. She's distracting him, ye le lo, take that, take this. But she's not giving of herself. And really, that's the point I think we should all be reaching, aspiring towards in our own lives. That yes, Divine Mother, you have given me all these things, but really always at the back of your mind, tell God, tell Divine Mother, all these things are secondary. They are good, I'm grateful for them, but I want you first. And so in our mind, good and bad karma, for the devotee actually it becomes very reversed. Because what is good in a worldly sense, really it's very good for the ego, the things that we get. But for the devotee, the right question should be, what is it that will bring me to you most quickly? That's the right question to ask. What is it that is going to bring me to you most quickly? And that could be good or that could be bad. in the worldly sense. But then when you ask that question, everything that comes is good, isn't it? Because if you've told God, give me that which is going to bring me most quickly to you, and that becomes by its very definition good karma. Even if it's the worst experience that comes to you, but at that point for you, it is good karma. So let's just remember that is very, very important, that good karma, Swami says, even good karma, it'll keep you bound on this cycle of birth and rebirth, because then you have to come back to, if you've done very lot of good work in this life, you've accumulated a lot of good karma, and let's say you pass away. Well, you have to come back to enjoy, maybe in your next life you are born with all of these good things. But who wants that really? I mean, for the devotee, that's almost like spiritual death. After a point you don't want those things. And it all begins, with, like Chika was saying, inner communion, taking that time every day to go into stillness, to meditate, to talk to the Guru, to ask the Guru, guide me, lead me. Yogananda ji would often say, he said, this can wait and that can wait, but my search for God cannot wait. And he would often tell this to disciples in the ashram, in his ashram, who were doing very good things, but they were not giving as much time to meditation, which is so central to our path, to everything he gave. And so I use this sometimes. This can wait, when the mind becomes too restless, too busy, you feel you have to do all of these things, they are proper, they are your duty. Remind yourself, this can wait and that can wait. But my search for God cannot wait. I had a very interesting experience recently which drove home this point. Divine Mother knows just what we need when we need it. A relative of mine passed away recently, and he was old, he had lived a good life. He was in Rajasthan, he was 80 plus. So I naturally went there, but I wasn't expecting that, as it turned out, because of, these customs, that I was asked to do the final rites, because he had 4 daughters, he's a cousins of mine. So I was asked to do the final rites, which I was very happy to. It's a privilege, to help in that way. But it was a very interesting experience for me. I had been at, people's passing before, but had never done the rites up close. So we went through all of the ceremonies, and finally, we put his body on the funeral pyre. I lit the body. A few hours later, nothing was left but ash and bones. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to be at, passing of a closed one. But the next day or a few days later, we were again asked to come back to the funeral site. And basically, where we had done lit the pyre, all that was left was ash and a lot of bones, because the bones somehow, most of them survived the fire. And I was asked to gather them. And I was very, like I said, surprised. Not really, I didn't mind it, but it was a very interesting experience that somebody who I had seen recently and somebody whose body I had seen fully, a few days later, I was collecting their bones. But even more than that, we gathered the bones, and then for the final rites, as one often goes to Haridwar to immerse the bones into the Ganga. So from Rajasthan, we had to take this car ride, which was 10 hours, and this bag of bones was given to me in a bag. But there was one very interesting instruction that came with it. And this instruction was that you're not supposed to let that bag touch the ground, touch the earth. Perhaps because the ties have been severed of that soul from this planet. So don't let the bag touch the ground. So what they did was they had a thread which they tied to the bag, and that thread went around my neck. And so for that very interesting car ride from Rajasthan to Haridwar, I was sitting in the front of the car with this, with a bag of bones in my hand, and tied around my neck. And I think you can imagine that was a very interesting car ride for me. But, many things. But one thing which I use these, it's a blessing to have such experiences because it reminds you again and again about life, gives you immense perspective. And in those moments, I repeated many things to myself. I said, this can wait, Gaurav, and that can wait. But my search for God cannot wait. And I was telling myself, very few years are left. Time goes by very quickly. All the spiritual efforts we have to make, our meditation practice, now is the time. Because some years later, I was telling, this is going to be in someone else's hand. My bones, my remains. And what then? When is that day coming, and am I prepared for when that happens? So, good to keep these things in mind, and especially, take the time every day. I think we can't emphasize it enough, to go into the inner stillness, to commune with God, and to treat that time as very sacred, as very precious. And then everything else flows. Like Master said, be calmly active, which is to say we have to do all the things we are doing, but then being actively calm, which is to say, we go into our inner stillness and we take the time to commune with God, and then we take that into all our activities. So this is a little bit that we thought we would share today, and I hope we can remember these things. Finally, again, remind yourself during the day, as life goes by, when you get too busy, this can wait, that can wait. But my search for God cannot wait. Joy to you.